welcome to the Explore YouTube channel. Today we are going to take a look at some of the important Python concepts which are going to help you in solving MCQs as well. Okay, so today we are going to diversify our area of interest. So suppose the first one is, okay, so different ways you can take user input in Python. Okay, so suppose I have a number 50 which I know for a fact is an integer. So let's consider that this 50 was my age. So how will I take it? So simply I can write a variable called age here, right? You can just take a variable called age and you have to just write int of input. Now you might be like, okay, how is this working, right? So in Python, suppose you simply write input and you have a variable age. So this is going to store, suppose 50 is something which you're providing, then this input is by default going to convert this 50 into a string. Okay, and now this is converted into a string. What you kind of want to have that, okay, age is an integer, so I am going to typecast it. So this is nothing but explicit typecasting. So int of 50, which is 50 is nothing but a string, will give me 50, which is now an integer. So my age is going to store 50 itself. So it's fair enough to say that input is going to take the input in format of a string by default. Very important. Let's see. This is the first way. Okay, 75.7. Suppose this was my weight. So how will I do that? Weight is equal to, again, input is the base here, right? Input is the base functionality here. What I want to do is that, okay, 75.7 is nothing but a float value and not an integer. So what I'll do is, again, I can just simply write float of input. That's pretty much it. Thirdly, we have suppose a name. Suppose that's my name, Vaibhav. So how will I take that? So I can just simply write name is equivalent to input. Should I typecast to anything else here? No, because again, as I mentioned that, okay, input is going to take the input, which is Vaibhav here, in the format of a string by default. I hope that makes sense. So list of integers input format is suppose this thing, right? And to understand this, we have to kind of understand what a dot split functionality is. So let's just jump into that first. Okay, so we have something called data manipulation, and suppose you are given an email in the format of first name dot second name, and I hope you guys can see this. Let me just expand it. So suppose you are given an email in the format of first name dot second name at domain.com. Not an issue at all. So example is suppose Vaibhav dot Kumar @domain.com. Okay, now the task which is assigned to us is that, okay, retrieve the first and second names. Okay, retrieve the first and second names, and the key is that the hint is that, okay, you can just use split keyword. Now you might be like, okay, what is a split keyword? So let me explain to you in a very simple way. So suppose you are given a very small string here, suppose A, B, C, and then we have something like at, or not really at, suppose let's take a small dot here, and then D, E, F. So suppose this is stored in a string called S. Okay, so this is nothing but a string. Okay, this is nothing but a string, and it's stored in a variable called S. So what if I say that, okay, give me A, B, C and D, E, F separately. Give me A, B, C and D, E, F separately. How will you do that? Well, what you can do is that you can just assign it in this way. So suppose if you write S dot split, okay, S dot split. Now this is going to take some parameter. Definitely it's going to take some parameter, but what is the parameter it's going to take? Let's see. So S dot split, whatever you provide here in double quotes or single quotes, doesn't matter. Double quote, single quote, doesn't matter. Okay, so S dot split, suppose I provide a parameter dot. Okay, in those double quotes, I provide dot here. So what's going to happen is that, okay, internally this is going to get split into two parts. This is going to get split into two parts. This entire string is going to take split into two parts. So on the basis of dot itself, it's going to get split into ABC and DEF. And by the way, when it's getting splitted, right, it's not really stored in the string. It's going to be stored in a list. Why? See, it's going to be stored like this, ABC, comma, DEF, and this is going to get stored like this, right? This is it. This is pretty much it. So if you write something like this, L is equal to S dot split, nothing but dot and this much, then this L is going to throw me an output like ABC and DEF. That's pretty much it. So it's fair enough to say that it's going to create a list based on the split value, right? And the values by default will be in the string format, right? Quite simple enough. So in this case, can I not say that, okay, so first name dot second name, so suppose Vaibhav dot Kumar, so I kind of want to split it based upon Vaibhav and then this entire stuff here, right? So how will I do that? So suppose I'm going to write it in this way. Email is this thing. Now my new information is going to be nothing but email dot split, and on the basis of what? I'm gonna split on the basis of dot here. Okay, so now new info is going to contain, now my new info is going to be what? Now my new info is going to contain Vaibhav, and on the basis of dot it has split, right? So Kumar at domain .com. Quite simple, right? And by the way, this .com, again, this will be splitted, right? So that's my bad. So this should be .com. Pretty much it, right? So on this basis of dots, right, it's going to get split, right? Quite simple enough. Now what I want is that, okay, I want Vaibhav and Kumar. Again, I have to split here on the basis of what? At. Quite important, right? So what I can do is I can just simply write here that my first name is going to be new info of 0, because that kind of makes sense. So right now I have in the first name variable I have Vaibhav. Cool enough. So how will I assign second name as? So my second name is going to be nothing but new info. Okay, new info of 1. So when I'm writing new info of 1, I'm kind of accessing Kumar at domain, but I kind of want to split this on the basis of at, right? So what I can do is dot split on the basis of at. So it's going to look like this, right? Quite simple enough. Now this is going to contain, my second name is going to contain a list here. It's going to be a list here. Okay, it's going to be a list. So a list of Kumar and domain. Quite cool enough, right? Now I kind of want this name Kumar here. So what I can do is I can just simply directly, instead of writing it in new line, just simply write here of 0. So at the 0th location, this is going to be the output. So as of now, what I can say is that, okay, it's fair enough to say that the second name is going to contain Kumar itself. That's pretty much it. So this is how you can kind of manipulate data, whatever the data is given. This is how you can manipulate data to achieve whatever the target is. So in this case, the first and second names for the target. So I kind of wrote it in that way. Okay, now that you understand the split functionality, let's try to understand with respect to that how you're going to take a list of integers. So suppose the input format is in this way, 10 space 34, right? Just notice here that I'm writing, this is a space here, right? It's not like, okay, 10 is there and then 34 is just next to it. So now I cannot differentiate between that, right? I can represent this as 1034, right? So now it's 10 space 34 space 12 space 14 space 15. That's pretty much it. So you kind of want to store this in the format of a list here, right? Suppose my list name is L. Very simple, right? My list name is L. So how will I take this input? How will I take this input? I'm going to take this input as follows. List map. I'll explain each and everything here. So map int of input dot split. Now you might be like, okay, you're not providing anything here, right? Earlier you were providing suppose dot or at, but right now you're not providing anything. So I'll tell you what it's going to do by default. Okay, by the way, this is going to be converted to this 10 34 and this will be 12, I believe, so 14 and then 15. That's pretty much it. So my list will be, L will be nothing but a list of integers. Pretty much it. Let's see what this is happening. What is happening actually? So initially input is there, right? Let's break it down one by one. So input is there. Let's take the input 10 34, then we have 12 14 12 14 and 15. So this is what my input is going to store. Notice there is a space here, right? There is a space here. Very important, right? There's a space here and not some underscores, but some spaces there, right? So right now my input has taken this dot split. So split is going to have some parameter here, right? Just to split. But what if I don't provide any parameter? Then by default, very important, if dot split is having no parameter, by default it's going to split on the basis of a space. It's going to split on the basis of a space. Quite important. So in this case, this is going to get converted to what? On the basis of spaces, it's going to split. So this is going to be 10, then 34 will come, then 12, then 14, then 15. Now notice that, okay, when I'm splitting it by default, again, which I've mentioned, it's going to be stored in a string format, right? Right now I'm at this point. Let's see. Now it's saying that map, very important keyword, map int of all of these things, right? So in this case, this will look something like this. Map int, and then this whole list will come up here and this is done, right? So what map is saying that, okay, map all of the values inside of this list, map all of the values inside of this list and convert them to suppose integer, right? Convert them or explicitly convert them to integer. So when this functionality gets over, then this new list is going to look something like this: 10 34 12 14 and 15, right? That's it. Now it's saying that, okay, convert it to a list. So as of now, this entire thing will be converted to a list. Suppose you have to store a list of strings here, right? And the input format is, suppose, what the dog doing. Okay, so how will I do that? Let's see. The idea is quite same, right? The idea is same. So input dot split will happen, right? So suppose the string was A, B, C, and D. Some spaces are there, so it's going to get converted to A, B, C, and D, right? Now this is it. Now I'm saying that, okay, map, what should I provide here? Should I provide int? No, that will be wrong. So I'll provide something called str. So str is going to typecast or explicitly convert all of these things into a string. Well, by default, I can see that it's in the format of a string, but it's a good measure to do that. Okay, so right now what I can do is, suppose my new list will look something like this: list of map of str and then input dot split, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so this is going to store the information in this format. So what the dog, and then at the end, I believe so, if we have doing, right? That's pretty much it. Okay, now data manipulation is something which I have covered as of now, so let's move forward. We have something called functions. So how to define functions, for example, which checks if number is even or odd. So we have to use a keyword called def. Very important, we have to use the keyword def whenever we are defining a function. Okay, so suppose my function name is check even or odd. Quite simple enough, right? Straight to the point, check even or odd. And this is how you write the function, by the way. And notice that, okay, I have written some rounded brackets here, right? So should I pass any parameter here? Well, I should. Why? See, it's saying that, okay, for example, which checks if a number is even or odd. I should provide a number here, right? I should definitely provide a number. So in this case, this is going to be nothing but my parameter, right? I have to provide some argument here, not parameter, but argument. Okay, so suppose my argument is nothing but a number. My argument is nothing but a number. That's pretty much it. So define check even or odd. Number has been provided. By the way, you can give spaces here or you cannot. It's up to you, right? It's up to you. So for example, I don't give spaces in between, right? Not an issue at all. So define check even or odd. Now I'm going to write all of my function, all of the code which is supposed to be in the function body. So what I'm to do, that notice one thing, that whenever I write some piece of code, see the indentation here, right? It's not like beginning from the very beginning, right? It's not starting from the very beginning. It's kind of inside of a function, right? So indentation is also quite important in Python. So right now, how do I check if a number is even or odd? So I can just simply write, okay, if my number modulo 2 is equivalent to 0, what I can do is, suppose I can just return nothing but even. Else in the other case, I can just simply return odd. Quite simple enough, right? So this is how you can define a function using the def keyword, and you can just have an argument here as well. Okay, now you might be like, okay, we have defined the function. How do I actually call the function? Okay, how do I actually call the function? So what you can do is, you can just simply write the function name first. So suppose you want to kind of store the return value from the function into some variable. So suppose my result is nothing but, I'll just write the function name. See, it's kind of popping up, check even or odd. So I'm just going to provide a number here. Suppose my number is nothing but 13, right? 13 is also a prime number, by the way. So result is check even or odd 13. So this is going to store in the result. What is it going to store? Firstly, check even or odd 13. It's going to make a call here. Number is 13. Is number modulo 2 equal to 0? No. So odd will be returned. So here my result is going to store odd. That's it. So what if I just call something like result is equivalent to check even or odd and maybe a number 124. So this is going to store the answer as even, because 124 is even number. That's it, right? So next we have Lambda functions, which are nothing but anonymous functions in Python, and I've written VVIP because this is quite important with respect to MCQ's point as well. So when to use, that's the real question. So Lambda functions are kind of used when we want the function for a very short period of time, or when we kind of want to implement a very small functionality in the function, right? Very small functionality in the function. So for example, create a Lambda function to return the product of two numbers. So let's see how we can do that. So suppose my function name is going to be as simple as By the way, lambda functions can be written just in one line. That's the beauty of it. So product is suppose my function. Now you might be like, okay, this is a variable here, right? No, this is not a variable when I'm writing with respect to lambda. So what I'm going to do is lambda is the keyword here. See, it kind of highlights in blue. Lambda is my keyword here, lambda function. I don't even need to write the function name to return the product of two numbers. So if I were to write a real function, def function, then it's going to take two arguments, right? Suppose number one and number two. So in this case also I'll write number one comma number two. So num1 and num2 kind of makes sense. Then I'll write a colon. Then I'll write the return value. What should I get? So I'll get the product of those two numbers. So I can just enclose them and write as follows: number one multiplied by number two. That's pretty much it, right? Once I've done this, we are done with the lambda function. How do I call this lambda function? So I can just simply write my result is nothing but, I'll write the function name. What is my function name here? It's product. Quite simple. So my product is going to be taking two parameters here. What are the two parameters? They are number one and number two. So suppose I provide a number like 10 and I provide a number like 14. Then my result is going to store what? My result is going to store nothing but the product of them, which is 140. Now, how is this working? So product of 10 and 14. 10 and 14 are going to get assigned to number one and number two. And this, after this colon value, it kind of says that, okay, whatever after colon is, I'm going to return that value itself. Quite simple enough, right? So 10 multiplied by 14 is 140. So right now this gets replaced with 140. And then this is going to get returned eventually. Okay, that's pretty much it from the lambda function. Now, there must be a drawback, right? Because I can see that lambda function is quite good enough, but there must be a drawback. What is the drawback? Well, the drawback is quite simple enough that, okay, you can have n number of parameters or arguments inside of this, but you can only have a one line of code here, right? I mean, you can have one line of code. You cannot have multiple lines here. That's the drawback of it, right? And again, you can just use this lambda function for a short period of time when you want to implement a very small functionality. In this case, it was the return product of two numbers. Even if I just want to implement this check even or odd functionality, how will I do that? Let's try to see. It will look something like this. So check even or odd, right? So check even or odd. So it's going to take, so lambda is the first keyword we write. We are going to take a number here. So suppose num. Now I want to return even, right? So I want to return even. So I just write even if num modulo 2 is equal to 0, else I'll return what? Odd. Else I'll return odd. That's pretty much it. And this is going to work. Believe me, this is going to work. Next up, we have reduce. So what is reduce? So basically reduce is a functionality which is available under function tools module. Okay, so initially to use reduce, what you have to do is I have to import function tools here. So import function tools. See, it kind of pops up. Great. Now how will I use reduce? So you can use the reduce functionality as follows. So suppose I have a list here of values 1 2 3 4 3 4 and 5, and you kind of want to have the sum of the list here. By the way, you can just write it in this way. Sum of L will definitely give you the sum of the list, but I don't want to use it in that way. I want to compute the sum of the elements of the list by using the reduce functionality. How will I do that? So suppose result, I'll write it in this way. Result is equal to function tools dot reduce will come into the picture, and I'll pass two parameters here. The first parameter in the reduce is going to be what I'm going to perform on the list. And the second parameter will be the sequence itself. So what is my sequence? It's list. So for example, L will be there, right? List will be there. That's my sequence. Now what I'm going to perform here? Let's see. I can use lambda. Again, I can use lambda. So suppose I write lambda a comma b. Again, I'll explain with respect to this, and then a plus b. What is this going to do? Let's see. So the result is function tools dot reduce lambda a comma b colon a plus b and L. So this is going to give me a result value of nothing but 15, if I am not wrong. So let's see what's happening internally. So consider this is the list here, 1 2 3 4 and 5, right? This is the list here. In the reduce functionality, I'm writing lambda a comma b colon a plus b, and then L is given, right? And this is all enclosed under this reduce functionality, right? Let's see what's happening. So right now what I can say is that, okay, it's going to take A and B as the first values here. So maybe I can just use a different color here. So it's going to take A and B as different numbers here. It's going to compute the sum of it because I'm seeing A plus B is there. So A plus B is nothing but 1 plus 2 is 3, right? So right now 3 is going to come up here, and now this is going to be my new A, and my B is going to be 3 now. So right now, again, if I just compute the sum, it will be A plus B, which is 3 plus 3 is 6. So 6 is going to be my new A. My B comes out to be 4. A plus B, 6 plus 4 is 10. So 10 is going to be my new A, and my B will be 5. 10 plus 5 is 15. So my 15 is going to be the A value, or you can just simply say that, okay, it's going to be my return value. Quite simple enough. So it's going to return me what? Result is going to return me 15. That's it, right? So I hope the explanation was quite clear enough. If you liked the video, please do drop a like on the video, and please do make sure to subscribe the channel as well. Thank you.